Action. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Hey Coach.
Hey, Coach.
It's myself, Seamus, and Donny.
I am here.
And our producer behind the scenes, Brennan. He's giving the thumbs up. So on today's episode, we are going to discuss season planning and putting together a document to help coaches, parents, players understand, what's going on, what the plan is for the season, kind of break it down, how we break it down into the different phases. And yeah, Donnie.
And yeah, just the importance of that, just even to have a basic framework of what your goals are for the season, breaking it down, sort of set expectations in your own head. Because as I'm 2 or 3 months into the season, things, your goals can definitely change.
Yep.
And staying on track is not as easy as you might think it would be, and also staying because you run out of time in practice, right? Like you do like 2 or 3 things in practice, and all of a sudden it's
all good.
Yeah, you do 2 or 3 things in practice, and all of a sudden you 3 of the drills that you wanted to do, you can't do, like I think I mentioned last time. So just knowing what's going to happen and having a plan in place,
yep,
it definitely helps with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I remember getting into coaching, and I was grade 12 and helping coach a grade 7 team, and we obviously wasn't a head coach, just an assistant coach with one of the teachers, but I didn't really realize the work that went in behind the scenes to coaching, and we've talked about this before. Actually, I think we talked about it last episode with Ryan, that it's a full-time commitment and beyond in some cases, right? Like you're always thinking about it,
Yeah,
right? You're always trying to come up with something that's going to resonate with the kids, and that's where I think having a season plan, and it doesn't need to be in massive amounts of detail, but to have that framework and that foundation that you can work towards is always key. And I think at the end of the day, with a season plan, and I would love to get some feedback from other coaches and players. As a coach, you've got that foundation of who you are and what you want to do with your season, but putting it into writing and sharing that with the players, and sharing it with your assistant coaches, and sharing it with, in your case, with the parents, kind of sets those expectations. So you don't get a parent that's coming back to you and saying, like, all we've worked on is passing for the last 3 weeks, right? So now they can start to see that, okay, we might be working on passing, but here's why we're working on passing for 3 weeks. There's a method behind that madness, and the next phase of the plan is more offense, or the next phase of the plan is
we'll get into the next step. We have a plan, and it also makes like your life as a coach, having it written down and having a plan, makes your life as a coach like way easier, because you can really just kill yourself thinking about what to do and what drills to run, and you can spend like so much time just thinking. It rents so much space in your head that it's almost not productive. But if you have a plan written down, you can save yourself a ton of time. And especially with a lot of coaches, like in club world, like it's definitely not your full-time job. Like you're committing practice times and then whatever time you have during the week to sort of make a plan. So if you can have a framework, which join the community we can supply this for you. It's pretty straightforward and can make your life a lot easier.
Yeah, if you haven't already, and the link will be in the description, head over to the community, sign up. We've got some great resources in there already, the season plan, practice plan template, and we're always uploading new things. And then feedback. It's always a work in progress. Like this season plan that I have, has been morphed and changed and cut and added, hundreds of times, right? Like you find out what works for you as a coach, and you kind of modify it from there. So I highly recommend you come join the community, steal the plan, and then provide some feedback and help us.
It's not like we have a plan for every age group, but there's a basic framework in there that has really helped me sort of realize, or really helped me sort of calm the stress down what I'm going to be working on
Yeah.
and all the other stuff. So just an example, like we just finished our sort of first round of exhibition games. So I'm now kind of moving into my, I guess, I don't know, we can go through the framework, but a next stage of my practices that was planned, like working on more offense. Like first, few weeks, there was almost no offensive work really. It was all just ball control, ball control, ball control. And this is also a good example. I don't know if we can get into details now, but it was a really good learning example for the girls. Like we worked on ball control, ball control, ball control. And then we start trying to work on offense, and the girls started to realize, okay, well, if I don't have ball control, we don't have offense, right? So I started throwing in free balls, and like, oh, great, we're working on offense. We're going to get to swing. I'm like, okay, that's great, but now we're going to do realistic game situation. So I'm going to give a free ball over, and you guys have got to work with that to get offense. Okay, well, all of a sudden, now I got to concentrate. They kind of realize how important ball control is, right?
Yeah.
Your turn's up to hit. The free ball goes to someone else, and they shank it. Oh, well, now we got to wait longer to get a hit. So, yeah.
No, that's and yeah, we kind of touched briefly on this in the last episode, where introducing, like, kind of sprinkling in those new drills and new phases to show the importance of what you're working on, because it can get boring.
Yeah.
Right, when you're showing up to practice and you're doing nothing but forearm passing, or you're working on the boring phases of footwork and platform and how your hands go together and everything else. Like it can get boring. So sprinkling that in to show them that this is needed, and here's why. And I think that early season, what we call the preseason phase, is so important, right? Is you kind of talked about this off camera, of like creating that culture that wants to win and wants to learn.
Yeah.
You have to be careful within your plan that it's not so set in stone that it becomes boring.
Yeah.
Where you can be a little bit flexible with it, and throw some harder drills in there.
Yeah.
So then the kids do start to understand, okay, I get this.
And some fun drills.
Yeah.
And
oh, for sure.
You're not gonna totally give up on gameplay or
no, not at all.
Fun drills. We mentioned that last time. We make it everything, gamify everything, but yeah, you want to get into it? Like,
let's get into it. So like,
stages?
so like I mentioned the first phase, and again, this is kind of how I break things down, and everyone's going to be a little bit different. Every club program is going to be a little bit different. College, university, high school, everyone's going to have a little bit different way to do this. We were mentioning the 4 phases. So preseason, early season, mid-season, and championship phase. Like you were saying, like everyone's going to be a little bit different. Some seasons are 3 months long. Other ones are 6 months long. So, or even longer, I guess, in the college season. So you really have to look at this in terms of your timelines, your skill level, all that sort of thing. But to break it down into the 4 phases, I think is the most simple way to do it. I think we could get more complex if you've got more tournaments and bigger aspirations, but I think
I know some seasons are super short. Like high school seasons can be 3 months, so you might sort of do 2. The first 2 are kind of all together, and tryouts might be part of it. But yeah,
no, exactly. So in the preseason, we're looking at core skills. So like we were talking about how we're breaking down footwork,
right?
Talking about the reasons why. Looking at stretching, player skill, again showing them those harder drills, right? In trying to get them to embrace failure, be okay with failure. Conditioning's a big thing too. I'm not sure at the U14 level what conditioning looks like, or talking about getting into the weight room, or eating healthy, or getting enough sleep. Like I think that's stuff we probably talk about it, but maybe not really.
It's something we talk about, and we sort of learned that the diet stuff. It's a learning process. We had an exhibition game at 9 a.m. one time, and the girls showed up, half asleep. So that's a good learning example. And then our first premiere is our games are going to be super early, so they've sort of learned that lesson. But yeah, it's something that we talk about, the diet and the sleep, especially. Yeah, but then as far as like for me, anyways, my first phase, like you said, was all like ball control, simple, very sort of simple drills, trying to break it down. A couple of reasons to do that. One, they're U14, so I don't think there's a U14 that I've ever seen that doesn't need more work on that kind of stuff. Everybody needs more work on that kind of stuff. But then it also lets you sort of see where you're at skill wise as a team, right?
Yeah.
And what you need to sort of even focus on even more throughout the season. So yeah, I mean, I think throughout the beginning, I've definitely made adjustments and realized that we need to probably extend the ball control sort of focus. But yeah, so it's, yeah.
The nice thing about, creating this season plan and kind of going through that, and you nailed it, right? Like it's all about changing and pivoting based on that skill level. And I think, passing defense, I know for my teams, that's always been important.
Right.
That's in every phase.
Right.
Right. You need it. Like you can't play without it. So like having that and always going back and just, simple reminders. Right. And it's as a coach, like I see you, you got notes on your phone right now.
Yeah,
and
notes app.
Right. And
the notes app that's honestly fantastic.
Yeah. The notes app is on Apple devices is fantastic.
Easy,
but it's
sure.
Right. Like, and that's the nice thing, we can get into the nerdy stuff too. Like I've got, I use the notes app, coaching right now. You can record your voice into it, transcribes it.
Oh, it does more. Right? It does more things than anybody knows what it does.
Things. So like having that is so important, because if you're in practice, obviously you probably have your phone with you or your notebook with you, just to jot down some insights and things that you're seeing.
Yeah, because you also a lot of times you'll drive home and you have all these thoughts and you drive home from practice, but then I know this happens to me all the time. The next day, you're like, forget them.
Oh yeah,
you just forget them, and then you get to practice and be like, oh yeah, that's what I wanted to do this practice. But
I've got a shortcut on my phone where I tap it, and a voice memo comes up.
You're the tech guy, and you need to do that.
Otherwise, you're right. You just you lose everything, and especially with coaching, like you're always thinking about it. Probably
right
to our own fault. You're always thinking about it. So like being able to save those insights and those thoughts and those ideas, so important. Yes. Otherwise they're gone. They're gone.
Yeah, having a good notebook or some way of recording it quickly. But what I was going to say about the phase one, as I'm sort of, like I said, I'm kind of transitioning into phase two, is that we only have 2 hours every practice, and then as every coach knows, it takes a while for the girls to get good at a drill, right? Mm-hmm. And as you get good at a drill, I'm not necessarily mean good passing or good technically at the drill, but like getting good at the flow of the drill.
Yeah.
Right. Volleyball is all about touches. So you want to get as many touches as you can in that time. So the first phase, we're getting good at a few drills, and the girls know the flow. They know when they get to practice. We have expectations. The first 15, 20 minutes of practice is like the same. They get lots of touches in. And we're not ever gonna forget that. But then as you get better at other drills, you can do what a drill that would normally take 30 minutes, 40 minutes to get X amount of touches in the beginning of the season. You can do the same drill in 15 minutes.
Exactly.
In the second phase, which is as a first time coach, I'm kind of realizing the importance of that as we have time. That'll give me more time to work on the stuff in practice that has no touches.
Yep.
Right. Especially at this age, the girls don't know the rotation. I don't know necessarily the position of all my girls. So I've got some girls that need to know power and middle. Actually, no, that's a lie, but that would be pretty common. But I have one girl that needs to know power, setter, and middle.
Yeah.
I've got one girl and I just realized 2 girls aren't coming to Premier, and I need to teach them middle and right side, and they've only been playing middle, so you got to teach them the rotation.
Yep.
And if anybody listening to this has ever taught 13-year-old girls anything, it sometimes takes a couple times to for it to click.
I think it's the age group, and I think that's the times that we're in. The attention span is like 12 seconds.
Well, it's the age group, and it's also the sport, and they're they're learning you're teaching them a rotation, and they're learning rules about the game that they never really knew before. So they're learning that, and then where to stand, and then doing it in a game is like there's 6 different positions, and so so if you can get really good at drills in the beginning of the season, focus on doing that, then you can still get those drills done in the practice and phase 2, or as you progress, and you can have more time, still get touches, but have time to like do the more boring stuff in practice.
Exactly. And I find like that phase 1 of the season, and Donnie, as you follow your kids up through the system, you'll definitely get to understand what works best for you and different age groups. But having your core drills, right? Like having those same drills. So like you were saying, if you have 45 minutes of forearm passing, maybe that 45 minutes now becomes the first 15 minutes of practice, and maybe that first 15 minutes is the same through the entire season. But having them do the same thing, like a 3-hit pepper or ball control or whatever it might be, they're getting their 50, 100 ball touches in that 10 to 15 minutes. That's fantastic. Right. Because now they've got a good foundation as they move through the rest of practice, and then through the rest of the season as well. One little tip or trick or hack that I have with my season plan, depending on the age group, skill level. We were talking, we live in an age of technology. So I'll go through and find clips either on Instagram or YouTube or whatever, and I'll link them into the season plan.
Right.
So this is another thing that I'm not sure we talked about, is I share my season plan.
Okay.
So I share it with the parents. I share it with the kids. If you've got like a Dropbox or I don't know, you're using TeamSnap or whatever.
Yeah, we'll share your app.
Right. Like everyone can refer to it. They kind of have a rough idea. Review it with the parents. They can see it. And then I always like to update it with links to videos. So if you're struggling with rotation, you only have 2 hours, right?
Yeah.
And maybe that's only twice a week in some cases. Find a drill, or maybe, hey, coach does this later on down the road, where we film how to teach rotation and the ins and the outs of it, and share that with the parents and with the kids, and then make them go back and do some homework. Right. Give them some homework and say, I want you all to watch this video. It's 10 minutes long, and I want you to bring one question back to practice next time. Get them more engaged. Get them curious about it.
Creating that sharing. And also at this stage, not everybody has, some of their access to their phones are restricted, and so sharing that information has been a little bit tricky on my end, but that's definitely a good idea.
Mm-hmm. So as you kind of work through that phase 1 into phase 2, now we're starting to get into more, like you were saying, that game specific, like your rotations, that sort of thing. And you said you're kind of getting into that stage now.
So I got into it a little bit earlier than I wanted to, because we had some exhibition games that kind of came sneaking up on me, so I had to spend a little more time on rotations and stuff. But we almost used those; they were more like scrimmages, so we were able to spend more time in practice not scrimmaging, and using these scrimmages as rotation work. So I kind of threw the girl. We went through the rotations quickly, and then it's just showing how you can kind of be knowing you need to be kind of flexible. The first few scrimmages, we did a 4-2 rotation, and then kind of realized that girls they got the rotation a lot faster than I kind of thought, and most of them figured it out. And I figured we could survive on a 5-1, so I said let's do it. Let's teach them a 5-1, and that's been our focus. That's been our focus in the last few practices, is because once you get into a 5-1, there's different. Again, me being a new coach, just the one thing that I completely forgot to teach the girls, and I learned it in a scrimmage against another team, was like, I didn't tell when there's a back row setter on a free ball, I didn't tell the back row what to do. So I was like, in a game, I was like, they put a free ball to one, and I'm like, oh yeah,
we haven't done that yet.
We haven't done that yet. So wrote it down. And we
wrote
it down, and we worked on that in practice, and girls got it right away.
Yeah, and that's again, that's the nice thing about having this is now you can kind of build it out, and that next year when you're coaching the team, right? Like you've got that in your
Right.
notes. You can kind of refer back to that
Yeah.
in your previous season plans. And I think as you get into that early season phase two portion of the season plan, you've got a good idea of who your team is,
So
right?
early season, that's when there's games involved now. Like you're starting to play
Yeah.
games.
Yeah, you're starting to get into a little bit more gameplay.
Yeah.
And you're finding out who your team is,
Right.
right? Are you an offensive team? Are you a defensive team? And
Right.
then that kind of sets you up. So if you're seeing that you're more of an offensive team, and maybe they're struggling a little bit on the defensive side of things, or vice versa, then you can spend a little bit more time in the early season focusing on the weaker side of that to kind
Right.
of bring it up to speed. Because like I've been a part of teams where offensively, super gifted, tall team, they go out there and bang balls and know what to do.
Yeah.
On the defensive side, and it's a lot of cases, but especially athletes now, like offense is fun.
Yeah.
Defense, you have to teach. Defense is hard.
Defense is, in my own progress, you have to learn how to make defense fun.
Yeah, exactly. And
And it wasn't
a hard thing to
it
do.
wasn't initially fun, but yeah, as you mature, it's the funnest. Well, anyway, it's the funnest part of volleyball.
I think so too, right? Like making that big dig so your big hitters can make their big plays.
Yeah.
is super important, and I think making that connection is also important. Everyone's got a job to do, but one of the things I use when I coach is, you want to make the next ball touch easier
Better, yeah.
for the next person.
Yeah.
Better the ball, right? Make it easier for that next person. So if you're going out there, you make a crazy good dig and you can play some offense off of that. Like that's all because of the dig.
Yeah.
So like finding out which team you have, and you'll figure that out as you get into the gameplay in the early season. It's kind of tough to see in practice because you've got it so controlled. Even when you're scrimmaging against yourself, it's a little bit difficult,
Yeah.
right? Because you're split up. You don't really have your players.
Yeah, you're split up. You know your players, and everybody knows everybody's tendencies.
Exactly. So as you get into some exhibition games, leading up to some tournaments, you really start to see what type of team you have, and then you can gear, that phase of your season plan with your practice plans,
Right.
and really focus on, whether it's defense you're needed or if it's situational stuff or whatever it might be. You can kind of focus on those skills, and basically try to get a balance, right? If you've got an offensively gifted team, let's try to bring up that defense level. So now you're a little bit more balanced, and then you're in that phase. You're getting probably pretty close to where you guys are at, where you're getting into some exhibition games or some tournaments coming out.
Yeah, we finished our exhibition games, and we've got 3 or 4 practices before our first big tournament.
Mm-hmm.
So
premier tournament or
first premier, yeah,
nice,
is in 3 practices. So not this weekend, the weekend after, yeah.
So and I'm sure you feel it, but it's a bit of a trying to cram things in before the first tournament, so you don't suck too bad.
Right.
But I think like setting those expectations with those kids is also important.
Yeah.
And the parents, just knowing that you have a plan. The plan isn't to peak in tournament 1.
Right.
The plan is to peak at provincials or at the whatever your goal is for the year. And it might be provincials, might be nationals, might be the third premier or whatever it might be. But understanding that it's a work in progress, and you're here to learn, and the kids are here to learn, and parents are here to learn. It might be their first time having kids go through this too. So setting those expectations with the parents is also key for sure.
Yeah.
And then going into mid-season plan. This is a fun one for me. I like this. It's kind of that build up to your what I call the championship phase. Where you want to peak. Here, I actually like to bring things back into some basics. I like to look at footwork, and you'll see this after your first tournament or 2 tournaments, I guess. You'll see where your teams might be lacking in some areas that need to be improved. But I always find if you've done the first 2 phases right, where you're on that right track, now you don't have to like break them down to teach new skills.
Right.
Now you're tweaking those skills.
Right.
right? It might be, footwork on your passing
Yeah.
or platform outside your body or
Yeah.
whatever that might be. So like looking at more advanced skills
Right.
as you kind of get into um, it'd be more gameplay, I guess, because as you hit that mid-season
And
point with premiers,
and I
you got a premier tournament every other weekend, don't you?
seems
Yeah.
yeah, pretty much, yeah. Yeah. And then in this midseason too, I mean, I don't know this, but I would imagine the kids would be a lot more receptive to some of these drills because they would have seen, you can kind of show them their gaps
Mm-hmm.
in their games. Like you can say like, yeah, did you notice in the last game they served here really good, or we lost a lot of points on here, so this is what we need to work on, and this is why, so they can kind of see it,
Yeah.
and then they can kind of get their competitive juices going to get better. Right now in the early season, it can be a little bit tough to sort of, like we mentioned before, they're doing things that are like, why are we doing this drill over and over and over again, right? But I guess, yeah.
No, and that's where, recording, those insights and those things that you see in games is so important. And it's tough, especially that U14 age group. You really want to try to stay away from coaching in game, like skills in game. You want to be more strategy, but writing down the skills that are lacking you to hit your strategy.
Yeah.
Right? So like that's really important in your mid season because you are playing a lot and you might not be practicing as much, or maybe you are, but you've got more opportunity to iron some things out in game, which is good.
Right.
But you still need to be able to like capture those moments where maybe the team went on like a 7-point serving run.
Right.
So like as a coach, now you're trying to figure out, okay, is this a tendency in this rotation? Is this a tendency with what's on the floor?
Yeah.
Is this a tendency of a gap in a skill?
Yeah.
And figuring out what needs to happen. But for you to like record a snapshot of that in a game and take some notes and then bring it back and ask some of those questions.
Yeah, so we
post game or to practice.
Yeah, we had a really good. I have an example of that happened to me this last weekend. So we were playing in our last exhibition game, and we had one girl go. We were losing 11-5, and we had one girl go back and go back to serve, and she served. I'm not calling where they serve, but I sort of in practice I tell them like good places to serve and what you want to do, and we do those like serving drills. So one of the targets is obviously deep one. Try to bounce out of the side of the court or have one bounce out the back. This girl goes back and serves. We won the game 25-12.
It's amazing. So that's all coaching.
Oh, also, I'll just toot my own horn. I don't think anybody noticed this, but it was 11-5. We were down 11-5. We hadn't lost a set in this tournament, in this exhibition situation. We hadn't lost a game. We lost one set. We hadn't lost a game yet. And this is our last game, and we're down 11-5. I call a timeout. She goes back to serve 20-some serves in a row. But anyways, no, the moral of the story, that's not for me to brag, but the moral of the story was, it was a good example of, I went back to practice on Monday and said, hey, girls, what did we learn on Sunday? 3 girls put their hand up and was like, you should be serving to deep one.
It's awesome.
So, yeah, I was like, So, it was a good example.
Yeah, and asking, I think a lot of coaches, I don't think they realize the importance of asking the kids these questions. Like even at this age, like having them involved is so incredibly important. Like post game, pre-practice, post practice, whatever it might be, to ask those questions and get them thinking about it. Because as a coach, we know everything, so we don't need that. But for them to say it and for their peers to see that they're engaged, creates that culture of wanting to get better and understanding the game, and creates students of the game, which is, if you can do that, you've won the battle.
Yeah. And also, if you ask them questions and they answer the questions, you sort of learn where they're at too.
Who they are, yeah.
Right. Who they're at, where they are. You sort of build some team cohesiveness, and then they may come with an answer that's like completely out of left field.
Yeah.
Maybe like, okay, well, we'll have to refocus on that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so for me mid season is fun. I really enjoy mid season. I think you see a lot of real progress
Yeah.
mid season. Again, I think that's just the tendency of doing what might be boring drills in those first two phases, but things start to come together, right? And one thing as coaches and Brennan behind the scenes here as players, it's really hard to teach players how to win. And
Mm.
I think you can now start to introduce that. So you might be running the same drills in practice as your first two phases, but now into phase three, you want them to be more competitive.
Right.
Mini games to three, mini games to five. Like,
Right.
you know, how many perfect free balls can you pass?
Yeah.
Right? Like having that challenge and creating a bit of competition in practice. And I like it. I know, and we've played together and we still play together. That little banter back and forth of trying to make each other better. Like, no, I'm better than you. I'm gonna pass.
Right.
Right. Like, so like having that little competition between liberos or having that competition between middle blockers, right? When you're going middle versus middle in a scrimmage and
Right.
it's a game to five and you can only score by going through the middle.
Right.
Right. Like having that competition back and forth, I think is super healthy. And that's some of the fun things you can start to do in that phase three.
Right. Yeah, no, that'll be good because that part of learning the game is, what I'm focusing on it quite a bit offensively is, the green light, yellow light, red light, and sort of knowing when to do what. And, I'm not going to be the coach that tells them in the middle, like before a serve, or I'm not going to tell them exactly what to do.
Yeah,
I want them to know what to do.
exactly.
So yeah, developing those games and having that competition. Yeah, and I can see, or sort of see it in the girls, like they're really getting ready for more of that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And I think introducing that into phase two is quite okay, especially in those foundational drills too. Have a little bit of that gameplay, like when you're doing three hit pepper,
yeah,
right?
yeah, count
How many times you can keep that ball up, or little things like even punishment too. Like you obviously want them to do things right, but if you have a scenario where you need to tire them out to focus on some things later in practice to
right,
work on that mental side of things. Doing three hit pepper or whatever it might be. Getting them to run when the ball drops, or something
right.
very simple like that. Is definitely helpful. As you kind of sprinkle that in and try to search for kind of that designed failure into those drills.
Yeah, so this in like the higher levels, like you'd be looking at like mid-season refinement would be stuff like, correct me if I'm wrong, but this would be stuff like, you might tweak your defensive structure, you might tweak your, your pace, setting pace to the outside, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you're looking at offensive
Like it's
plays,
a
your defense.
skill level dependent,
Yeah.
team level of team dependent.
And by the mid-season, you faced a lot of the teams that you're going to see for the rest of the season too.
Right.
So now you can start working on strategy.
Right. I guess that's a good point. The way it's structured is the first tournament is seeding pretty much. And then you should be, for the second and third tournaments, you should be pretty much playing against
The same teams.
pretty much the same, or at least the same level of teams.
Yeah. Yeah. So then you can start to see, what other teams are.
Where they're scoring against us,
Yeah.
where we're scoring against them. And
So then you can start to tweak things. You're obviously going to start to find where your players excel, and in different situations.
Right.
You're gonna have players that are out there. They're go getters. They're winners. Right. But you don't really have to spend too much time with them.
Right.
You're gonna have other players that might be a little bit more timid. Maybe
Right.
they're a little bit more.
The moment can get to some kids,
Yeah.
and some kids, the moment they just naturally rise to it. Yeah. So
It's like-
learning that.
Yeah, learning that and then teaching that. Again, it's all about, elevating your team and elevating your players. And to do that, you really do need them all at that same level.
Right.
And that's where, getting into the championship phase, when you've got everyone doing their job and at that same level, now you can hit that peak and push that next level,
Right.
which is obviously what you need to put together that championship team. It's the first three phases, again, skill development, finding out who they are, refining it. And then as a coach, the championship side, is just so important. But a lot of that is the mental
Right.
side of it, right?
Yeah.
Teaching the importance of, in-game strategy. There's a time to go back and smoke your A serve, and there's a time that a B serve needs to go in, right?
Right.
Like being aware of where you are in a set, where you are in the match,
Right.
where you are in the tournament, like
Right.
understanding that whole side of things, and that comes into
learning that like a 5-point lead might be a lot in, U sport, but a 5-point lead isn't that big in
no.
U14 girls.
Yeah. Well, and that's like it's like
But
that,
learning that,
like that big run that you went on,
right? That's gonna happen to us.
It's gonna happen to you too,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah, I told that that was the one thing I said to the girls, like that can happen against us.
Yeah. So
So
like,
we need to be
being
prepared.
aware of that, and that's where the championship side comes in, is like, how strong can you be mentally after a server went back and have put in like 4 aces in a row,
Right.
and that happens at all levels.
Yeah, and you see the server was like, oh man, I messed up this last 3. Your confidence kind of goes down, and yeah, this is maybe a different podcast, but one of the most important things in volleyball, I think, is you have to reset.
Yeah. Find a way to snap it.
Find a way to reset. Like I always say, when I'm helping higher level teams play, it's like you have to play. One of the hardest things in volleyball is you have to play every point like it's the last point you're ever going to play, and then you have to forget about that point.
Yeah,
but also remember it.
Yeah, it's tough. Like and I think that's what's so important here. With the planning too, is like now you can, like, a coach with that season plan, knowing that in phase 4 we're going to work on that.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna work on that killer instinct.
Yeah,
you can sprinkle that into the first phase.
Right.
Like you can introduce it.
Yeah.
Knowing that you're going to get there at some point.
Right.
Without a plan, like you're just kind of winging it, and like it's just like a player tipping it to 1.
Right.
Right. Like if it's not on your radar, you're not going to teach it.
Right.
Now that you've got your plan together,
yeah,
you can kind of pick a few things that is going to either spark some interest or reduce that, boring practice or whatever it might be, to kind of get them to think about something, something different.
So that's the 4 stages. Now, this is my first year coaching, so I would like some, because it is super easy to get off track.
Yes.
And I have definitely got off track. With certain drills going too long and maybe spending too much time on other situations. So, yeah, like what have you done in the past? What do you do to keep things on track?
I think setting some goals is really important. We can take rotations, for example. Like you should be able to, say, a few weeks into maybe phase 2, that they should be able to go through the rotation without your help. Right. You should play ghost volleyball, right? Like have them do a full rotation at the start of every practice.
Right.
Like before they even pick up a ball, we just do the rotation.
Yeah, you can do that when you're doing your dynamic stretching.
Yeah. So like in stretching, like, but put that goal out there that you're like, in 4 weeks or 5 weeks time, kids, you have to be able to do this on your own.
Yeah.
I'm going to sit on the sidelines. You guys are going to go through it. Some are going to learn faster than others, and the ones that understand it are going to need to coach the ones that don't understand it.
Even like last night, like a question came up. It was like, what happens if we are out of rotation? And I was like, yeah, I guess I never said that to you guys. You lose a point.
Yeah.
The other team gets a point when you're out of rotation. They're like, oh, really? Yeah, so it's important. That's as important as serving.
It really is. So I think setting those milestones and setting those goals, like within your season plan and within each phase, what is in some coaches will have like a theme for every practice, or a theme for the week, or a theme for that phase.
Yeah.
Having that and then your goal based around that I find is helpful. But it's going to be about you and the team and what works. And I think that's always good, because then in practice you can either on a whiteboard or on your practice plan have that theme or have that intention for that practice.
Right.
So they understand it. And then at the end of practice, if you have a few minutes to chat with them while they're stretching and getting ready to go, you could ask them if you achieve that theme or that intention for the practice, which is part of the bigger goal.
Right.
And that helps you as a coach, one, to get feedback, and two, to make sure you're staying on
track.
Yeah. And then I would say that the second item that has always helped me, and we talked about it a little bit, is taking notes.
Right.
Like at the end of practice, take 2 minutes after you get the feedback from the players. Maybe you're getting some feedback from the parents, or your assistant coaches. Just write down what you thought of practice. Was the energy level high? Was it low?
Yeah. How do you manage? Yeah,
Right?
that's one thing I'm learning is that sometimes I think I have a good practice schedule planned, and the energy level's not there.
Yeah.
Things that derailed, and I think I mentioned this a while back, but certain girls don't show up to practice, and you have to have that ability to flex too.
Yeah.
But having that goal in mind.
So just writing it down, and maybe you have practices on Mondays, and maybe there's a tendency of Monday practices being a little flat, like no energy. So maybe you start to sprinkle in some, intensity early on in the practice.
Right.
Get that blood pumping. Maybe fire them up a little bit. Maybe they make a couple errors that they shouldn't be making.
Right. Or they don't usually make. Yeah.
Yeah. And now you can kind of use that as a way to maybe get into them a little bit.
Yeah.
Not so much as punishment, but a way for you to maybe break the habit of Monday practices being a little tough. And I saw that a lot coaching the higher levels of club and into college. Mondays were tough.
Yeah.
Sunday was your only day. A lot of kids are they're trying to get caught up on schoolwork or whatever it might be. And Mondays, they probably hit the gym, or they should have hit the gym on Monday and Sunday and Monday.
At the higher levels.
Hit the higher levels. Maybe they didn't. So Brendan's shaking his head behind scenes. So finding a way to light a bit of a fire under them, because Mondays are typically going to be, as you go through and you build out your season plan, and then you build out your practice plan and that sort of thing. Mondays are going to be tough because you're probably breaking down skills where you were lacking from the weekend.
Right.
So it is going to be boring. And sometimes that does tend to lead into lower energy levels, like just errors and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So if you can break that quick, and the only way you can do that is by taking notes and finding where your trends are.
Right. Now, how do you, as far as staying on track, how do you deal with, or maybe there's some tips with like regression, like players, like like an example, we had this one drill where we set a goal, or we didn't set a goal. We're always going to try to beat our goal from last practice. Early in the season, we got to like 50.
Yep.
Last practice, the girls could only get to like 7. Regression. So how do you deal with?
Are we back? We are back. Action.
Yeah, how do you deal with regression? Like girls catch a skill or a drill really well, and it's going really well, and then like they just really struggle with it later on.
Yeah, that's definitely going to happen. I think communication with the players is key, and I think it's again, you can kind of bring that back and then scale the skill back, or like if you're getting regression, then let's take a look at the skill again.
Yeah.
So okay, like we haven't been able to hit it the last 2 practices. Let's take a step back. Let's work on some foundational stuff. So say that drill, you're doing that drill for 30 minutes. Now let's say, okay, this isn't working. Let's go back to a skill that's a little bit more basic, or let's look at footwork or hands or whatever it might be for 15 minutes, and then get back into the drill.
Right.
I think coaches sometimes can be afraid, and I'm definitely guilty of this, of kind of pushing up against a brick wall instead of like taking a step back,
right,
and then take a running start at that brick wall.
Right.
So
yeah, because I'm definitely running it. Like I'm running into that now,
which is pretty early for that to happen. So like you might have gone a little bit too quick,
right,
and then maybe take a step back and look at the drills you did to get to that point, and maybe you didn't break it down far enough,
right.
which could be the case. Might not be the case.
Yeah, I don't know. Like
Right?
they
Like
could just be they got good at it, and then they're sort of.
you just want to make sure that they're not cheating the drill. Like they didn't
That's what I
cheat the
mean.
drill to get that good. So maybe you need to take a quick look at it. So like going into that drill in your next practice, be prepared or have in the practice plan like an off ramp or like a failure. So if they fail on it, you drop down and do a different drill,
Right.
and then you give them the opportunity to go back into that drill,
Right.
right? And then communicate that to them. Be like, we're not good enough. We're gonna peel this back, and you need to get better at the foundational
Right.
skills. And if you can do that, then we'll get back into this drill.
Right.
Especially if it's a drill that they like, they'll be really motivated
Right.
to do things properly with the foundational skills.
Yeah,
and
no,
they'll get better at the.
it's a boring ball control drill, but yeah, so
Sometimes sometimes it's the drill too, right? Like sometimes either modifying the drill or trying to find something similar.
right.
And then again in your note taking or journaling after practice, just mark it down. Be like, okay, it's been like 3 practices in a row. We're still struggling with it. Peeled it back. We worked on some skill. We're still struggling with it.
Right.
Maybe start that drill. Come up with a new one next time.
Right.
Because that also could be the case. No,
Yeah.
it's like I find that pretty rare, but it's also been years since I've been at the U14 level. So like, I would say just be flexible with it. I think that's definitely
Right.
definitely going to be a key in a lot of this. Is as a coach, you're going to fail,
Right.
but how are we talk about failure within with the players.
Yeah.
How are you going to handle the failure?
Right.
Right. If the drill's not working,
Or the ups. Yeah.
right. Like at some point you need to cut your losses and be like, yeah, this drill isn't for this team.
Yeah.
It might be a great drill, but it might not be for this
Right.
team at this
Right.
time.
Yeah.
Which could be the case.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think having one other thing I'll mention about this season plan is like as I'm learning, and I think I've kind of knew, but I'm seeing it firsthand, is there's definitely some serious ups and downs. Like you can, like the highs of being a coach are fantastic. And then the lows of being a coach are, you're like, we were doing so good last week. And then now it's like, I don't know. And then inevitably it comes right back up, it seems. So
yeah,
just because you can kind of you can get down on yourself and want to concentrate on some different things if you're down, and then you might be on a high and you might be overconfident on your skills. But I think this plan is good to just sort of stay on track.
Mm-hmm. Like the foundation, right?
Yeah.
That's what it's meant for. And we all know this in sports and in work. Like if you don't have a plan, you're never going to be able to execute on it, right? Like if it's just living in your head, it's your ups and downs are going to be even bigger,
Right?
Because it's how you're feeling as a coach from week to week if you don't have a plan, right? So I think that's why having that plan gives you that baseline, and I think it sets a really good example for the athletes as well. Like, and that's why I think sharing it is so important. It's one of these tools that there's coaches and coaches programs and everything out there that sell this stuff, but I think this is something that should be stolen. I think it should be morphed, and
Right.
I think athletes should give feedback on it, and parents will definitely give you feedback on it. And it's taking that and making it yours. And every season's going to be a little bit different.
Yeah.
Because every team's going to be a little bit different. Like your first phase might not be as long, right? Like you might have a team that you need to just jump in. Like if you got a team that's a favorite right from the beginning, maybe your first phase isn't as big.
Yeah, or you have like lots of returning players like that. Yeah.
But like they still, I still say like that first 15 minutes, like finding drills that are going to create that ball control, get that blood pumping, and then they get in the gym. There's no questions asked.
Right.
They're in it and they're doing it. Like the last thing I coming into a gym, like with a camp or with a team, if practice has already started and kids are bouncing balls and chatting and doing whatever, then I haven't done my job as a coach.
Right.
Like they should know shoes are on, partner up, or whatever they need to do, whatever that foundation drill is, they're in it.
Yeah.
So it's those players that, they're itching to get in there because they want those extra 15 ball touches.
Right.
Right. So like always having that's those same drills that they can just get into. And maybe you change it up, but like if they get in there and they're playing 3-hit pepper or whatever it might be, they know that they're getting their ball touches in. You might come in and change it up. It might be a fun, maybe a little tennis, maybe whatever it might be,
Right.
to change it up. But they know when they get in the gym, it's
go time.
It's go time.
Yeah.
Right. And I think as a coach, if you can create that sort of culture and environment where these players just know what to do,
Yeah.
I think is going to be key. And again, sharing it, right? Like they all know, they can all see it. That's like I post my practice plans as well. Right. They know. And sometimes those practice plans are, scribbles in my notepad. Sometimes they've got the full drill laid out, whatever it might be. But at least they know what's coming.
Right.
I think is super important.
Yeah.
And definitely helps as a coach, I think.
Yeah, no, I think that's good advice for sure.
So yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah, I think that's good for a season cap. And then I think.
Do you have any other questions? Concerns?
No, I think.
Have you had any parents question your season?
No, I've had a group of parents who have been really good. I think they've seen.
Did you share the season plan with them?
I haven't. No, I haven't. No. I haven't shared the season plan with them. Yeah, parents. I haven't had any parents even approach me really in person.
Oh wow!
So I've had a few parents just text me, but that's just like kid can't come to practice or this, or they're not going to premieres or whatever. But it's been it's been really good. These exhibition games we've been pretty successful. So, and I've seen. I mean, I've seen growth in the team, so I'd imagine the parents have seen pretty good growth in the team. So
you're in their good books right now.
As far as I know,
that's fantastic.
I haven't been. You do worry about that because the one thing there are certain. I think every team, as a coach, every team has certain players that you want to, call out or, spend more time with or, what's the word for it? Those girls, the ball gets to the one kid and it just kills the drill.
Yeah.
Drill killers. Drill killers. Like, how do you manage a drill killer? Like,
and that's the thing.
Calling them out in the middle of practice might not be the best thing. And
no,
she does it like 4 times in a row. It's like, well.
And that's where like going through those phases and them understanding like those drill killers and you will always have, it doesn't matter at what level, like you're always going to have, and it might not be all the drills, but some drills.
Yeah.
That the importance of elevating all the kids to the same level is so important. But they again, buy-in, like they need to be able to believe in what you're doing too.
Right.
So, but yeah, I'm sure y'all. Well, this
we'll find out. It's been a whirlwind.
We'll
I mean, it has been a whirlwind, and busy life is like sometimes I'll admit there's been times I go to practice and I'll be like driving there, I'm thinking about what I'm going to do.
Yeah,
just life is busy.
It's busy.
Well,
100 kids.
Yeah, with 100 kids, it's not quite 100 kids, but yeah, having this plan and being like, okay, I have time to, work on this. I don't have to quite get to, some of the other things that I've been always sort of thinking of what I want to do. But
yeah, well, and that's the thing. Like, I think just to wrap up here, if you've got the season plan done, if life does get in the way, you can always refer to your season plan. Right?
And it's never too late to start a season plan. You can do a season plan in the middle of the season. Start it now.
Highly recommend.
Start it with 3 weeks. If you have 3 weeks, put a plan together for 3 weeks until your provincials or whatever.
Yeah, and like just like a little bit of history. Like this season plan started as essentially a monthly plan for me. Like there was a couple coaches that I coached with and had that had season plans, but for the most part, it was like a monthly plan. Like sometimes they even it was a weekly plan.
You're right.
But I saw that benefit of having this in place. That could be you could lean on, and yeah, you're totally right. Just hop into the community, steal it. Let us know what you think.
It's free.
It's it will definitely help you. So
yeah,
Brandon will link it.
I think it's free.
It's free for now.
It's free for now.
Oh, it's free. It'll be linked in the description. And yeah, we'll end it there. Thanks again, Donny.
Yeah, thanks a lot, James.
It's fun.
We'll see you around.
See you next time.